Welcome to the Building Efficiency Resources podcast, the
BERcast.
BERcast. We got the claw out. We're ready to cover the topics that mean something to you as a professional in this industry. We got party in the back. Chris McTaggart was the show leader. And we got business up front. Sandy Gallo as my main man. What's up, Sandy? How you doing today?
I'm good, Chris. How are you?
Man, you're going to have to do a little bit better if you're the color guy than that.
I'm fantastic. How about that?
There you go. That's a lot better. All right. So, I think the main topic on everybody's mind today in the industry is what is going on with this business with ResNet, with the EPA. Our understanding is that the EPA, with all this 45L tax credit business, they're starting to get a little bit more, looking for more from their HCOs, from their home certification organizations. I have word on the street that EPA has put out a proposal for comment from existing HCOs for a revision of the expectations for quality assurance. Sandy, what are you hearing about this?
Well, I would say first and foremost that I think that it's really going to be a revolutionary change if they go through this for our industry, right? What's proposed is quite a step further in regulatory and, quality assurance overall. So I would say that the biggest thing I hear from the people that I know is that they're concerned that, it's going to be a really hard hill to climb, in a relatively fast manner.
Hard for who? Hard for the raters?
Hard for the raters, it's going to be hard for ResNet. I mean, you think about it. I mean, they're fundamentally, just things as simple as collecting all the documentation, which has never been really anything to do with ResNet, right? They didn't have to keep the HVAC design report. They didn't have to keep the ENERGY STAR rater checklist. Now, part of that whole proposal is that ResNet has to collect all of those. So it affects ResNet. It affects the software provider, because you would think that automatically that these items would probably be part of the software upload, right, when you register a home. And it affects the rater because there's a lot more QA, which is going to be the first thing everybody's going to say is cost more money. If that's going to be the first argument against it. But I do think it's, after going through the QAD instructor quarterly, rollout of this and reading it myself, I think that it's going to be a large hurdle. And I don't think it's going to be something easily accomplished in the shorter time frame that they're discussing.
Right. Yeah. So for those of you all who don't really know us that well, Sandy is my brother from another mother. He and I have a little bit of a different history in this industry. So as one of the co-owners and founders of Building Efficiency Resources, we've been a third-party provider now for our entire tenure in the industry. We've been working with independent HERS raters and HERS rating companies all around the country to serve as their quality assurance provider. As a result, we have been more regularly collecting documentation from raters, photo documentation, checklists, plans, specifications, et cetera. And that's part of our quality assurance review. Sandy, his main, experience in this industry in terms of number of years really has been working with more direct providers, so providers who are directly serving builders, developers, et cetera. So now if we read between the lines of this proposal, it almost seems like what would have to happen is that ResNet would almost have to be like a third-party provider type of thing for direct provider type of organizations. Is that how you're reading it, Sandy? And how would that change things?
That's exactly how I'm reading it. And I think, well, for one, so the biggest thing that's going to change is that you're not going to be able to register a home without all of the documentation submitted to the HCO. So that it's a big change, right? Because right now you just hit submit and you retain the documents, and you can have a semantic argument whether you have them all or not at that time, right? You're supposed to, but this, I think this, this coupled with that extra QA, that ResNet does not have the staff for. Let's just be honest. I mean, they've been running on a skeleton staff. They're still running on a skeleton staff, and they're going to be required to do QA as well, file QA and checks as well as as part of the improvement process. So I think that just changes the landscape of ResNet, because number one, the registry is not built to take all those documents. So there's going to be not only a cost but a change there. And two, and then ResNet themselves are going to be responsible for file QA at a to be determined level. I think it. Look, I think overall it's good for the industry, because now look, when you buy a car, you don't buy it with 3 wheels, right, Chris? I mean, you buy it with all 4. So I think it's inevitably, I think it's going to be great for the industry, because it's going to ensure quality, and I believe that that's what the EPA is ultimately looking for. They're looking for assurance to know that the home is truly qualified as an ENERGY STAR home, and I think that's a good thing. But I do think there's going to be a paradigm shift in our industry to get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a cost. And I think cost is going to be a big argument you're going to see with this, Chris.
Yeah, what will be interesting to see is, does it even the playing field, or does it cause, basically further economic pressure on the HERS industry? From the perspective of kind of the one-man band HERS rater, I think you take a look at some of the larger direct providers in the industry who have leveraged their ability to maybe package different services or take advantage of natural infrastructural advantages through other business relationships, maybe they
Sure.
sell insulation, or maybe they do HVAC consulting or something like that on a national scale. Rating providers have been able to package these things together to secure, national or regional contracts with bigger builders. And we've seen an increasing sort of consolidation, we could argue, in that arena. Does this perhaps give an inroad for the one-man band to maybe be able to have more of a punching chance, and so it's not just a race to the bottom? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I would say the first thing it's going to affect is cost, as I said before. And I think the cost of a rating is going to go up. And I think that will level the playing field for the small to mid-sized rater. Right now, you're competing, it's David against Goliath, and I think that part of that reason is that scales of economy make it the ability for these large rating conglomerates to offer a much more reduced price than the local rater can, because they're doing it on a much larger scale. I think this kind of will even the playing field, because now, number one, not throwing any darts, but some people don't do it right, and or they're not following procedures exactly. This is going to force them to do that. And when that forces them to do that, it's going to be a cost involved. And when the cost is involved, it's going to cost more. And I think that, inevitably it's going to stop that race to the bottom, and maybe even rise it a little bit, because there's going to be inherently more cost for the direct rating provider, as well as your local rater that works with a third party company like BER. So I think if there's a requirement, I mean, everything's going to go up, right? I mean, it's software registration fees are going to go up, because it's going to cost more money, and they're going to need that money to support those efforts. I think that the rater fees themselves are going to have to go up, because I think too, there's going to be responsibility on the builders as well. They're going to have to ensure that you're not chasing them down for 2 months to get a HVAC design report, because they're not going to get their homes registered. They don't get their home registered, they can't sell it as an ENERGY STAR product. So I think there's a lot of obstacles there that will help kind of even the playing field a little bit, to be honest with you.
Okay, I agree, and I'm definitely interested to see how this shakes out. I think that the EPA's goal is that there's more consistency in labeling of homes. So if a home is labeled as an ENERGY STAR certified home or multifamily dwelling unit, that there is better assurance that really all the T's were crossed, the I's were dotted, the project was fully documented. Obviously, this has big benefits to the consumer who's purchasing ENERGY STAR homes. They have better assurance that their homes actually meet the minimum specifications.
I would argue that's the biggest benefactor of all.
Right. Absolutely.
To be honest with you.
So, so definitely the consumer wins. The EPA arguably wins because they maybe have more support from an HCO that's able to meet this standard. What about the builders? Are the builders winners or are they losers in this? They may have to pay a little bit more from what I'm hearing, and builders don't always like hearing that they may have to pay more. So, I'm already hearing things like, builders are ramping up to do ENERGY STAR, but they don't really want to pay for it. They don't want to pay the rater more to do the verification. So we're almost, at this crossroads where more expectations are out there from a QA standpoint, from a documentation standpoint. But at the same time, the paradigm of still wanting things for relatively little money exists. So, is the builder going to be a winner or a loser out of this, would you say?
Well, I think the builder is a winner if the program is, enforced. I mean, we've always talked in the building science arena about how, energy efficiency is not only good for the consumer, but it's good for the builder. It's good for the home. It lasts longer, less degradation, right? With air sealing and all these things that we talk about, right? In building science, better indoor air quality, less energy use. So, I mean, from a warranty standpoint, I think, the builders need to be educated a little better of how much of a benefit that really is. It's another set of eyes on the home, both at pre-trial and final. We're making sure that, it's a quality product, and quality product means less warranty cost. And all you have to do is look at a public builder and look at their warranty costs over a year. It's millions and millions of dollars. And I think that this program, implemented correctly, can take a big chunk of that away. So really, are you really losing money? Is it really costing you more? I would argue to say that probably not. That probably it's actually saving you a little money. It might be a little bit more upfront cost, but I think the back end cost is where, and we've done a bad job, Chris, as a rating community, really selling that point. We've done a horrible job at that. Yeah, it's mentioned once in a while, but do we really sell that point? And the answer is no. So I think that's, really a win for the builder. Two, I think it's a win for the builder because there's no backlash from a customer, right? I mean, if there's more, a customer finds out that their home is really not ENERGY STAR, you're going to have a problem on your hands. And it's not going to be a little problem. And, currently how the system works is they do an investigation. They go in, they check the house that don't pass. EPA rips the label, right? I mean, it's that simple. Why would you want to take that chance, So I think that actually the benefits to the builder way outweigh the little bit cost more when you look at it overall, but it's up to us as the building science community and the rater community to really sell that value message.
Yeah, I'm with you, and, thankfully there's also this, $2,500 tax credit. So a larger tax credit, possibly even a $5,000 tax credit for truly innovative homes pursuing the DOE Zero Energy Ready Homes program. There's still the utility rebate programs that exist in a lot of places around the country. The builders, obviously, a lot of this stuff is code compliance anyways. Chris McTaggart here, Building Efficiency Resources. First episode of the BERcast, and part of the ongoing series here is some exclusive interviews that we're having with various individuals throughout the industry. We're broadcasting live from Minneapolis, where we just had the annual fall board meeting, and I'm here with the reigning champion of the industry, Steve Baden, as well as the international man of mystery, Philip Ferry. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, so we're a little bit worn out after a knockdown, drag-out board meeting, as usual, but, all went, I think, record your plans. And, we're here to discuss kind of maybe a little bit of a somber topic, but one that really we hope turns into a happy and educated one for all of you all. Those of you who are not aware, Ron Hughes recently passed away this past month. And Ron Hughes is really, in a lot of ways, the godfather of the home energy rating system. He's the man who's credited as having basically coined the term home energy rating system. So, really, we're not here to talk about, all of the history of the HERS system. That's for a future episode. But right now, I wanted to bring both Steve and Philip, who knew Ron really well, onto the cast in order to kind of just give a little bit of a memorial of him, talk about his contribution to the industry and what made him special as a human being. So thank you guys again for having this conversation with me. So Steve, I'm going to start with you because I think you knew Ron the longest. So maybe just start with, how did you get to know Ron? What were some of your professional interactions with him early on?
I first met Ron, I think, in 1984. Okay. I was running the state of Alaska's residential energy efficiency programs, and here's this guy from Little Rock, Arkansas, coming to me with this nice, smooth jaw and saying I should know something about home energy ratings. And one thing I was struck by it is that Ron was a smooth talker, and he also was passionate. And so I started following what he was talking about, introducing some members in the housing industry, and we created what was called Energy Rated Homes of Alaska. It was just one of the first statewide rating programs. And funny enough is that Ron shared with me that he had a background with this little-known governor called Bill Clinton, who several things came into being. One was that Ron was probably best loved at all was the guitar. He loved music. Anyone who watched the videos of the boogie band, would see Ron there. And every evening at the ResNet conference by the fire pit, he would have his guitar and share music with others. And that was his passion. And he was good. I mean, as he mentioned, he had a pickup band who played at Bill Clinton's first inaugural party. He also was able to play with famous players such as John Prine. And so he had a multifaceted life, which was really interesting. For instance, he loved growing organic garlic.
Okay.
And it's probably his best cash flow was selling organic garlic seeds.
Yeah, well, the HERS industry, it can be feast or famine, especially I'd imagine in the 80s and 90s. So I think that'll be interesting to a lot of listeners is that the concept of a home energy rating system goes back to the 1980s, right?
Yep.
And at that time, my understanding is that really it was almost like every state had the potential to implement their own energy rating system. And that at sometime, what was it, in the late 80s or early 90s, that basically things coalesced into Energy Rated Homes of America. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And so was Arkansas one of the first states that had its own program?
Yes. And that's where Ron got involved because Ron was the one who introduced it to the state energy office and to then Governor Clinton. And they were able to secure some funding in order to start the Energy Rated Homes of Arkansas. And what was nice about it is both the state of Arkansas and Bill Clinton saw more than Arkansas because they said, we'd probably all be better if we had a national system.
Okay.
And so what it was is they started collecting a group of state energy offices from Alaska to Vermont to start sponsoring rating programs. And one of my fun things I did with him is I was from Alaska, so I had a senator that was high on the Energy Committee, Senator Ted Stevens. And he had a senator from Arkansas who was high on the Energy Committee, Senator Dale Bumpers. And they both became convinced that this was a good idea. So they sponsored a piece of legislation, co-sponsored Republican Stevens and Democrat Bumpers, to create an independent, market-based national home energy rating system. The legislation didn't go anywhere, But it became a seed there because it was such bipartisan support and such important policymakers in those days as Burgers and Stevens that it was included in the National Policy Act that was under President Bush.
1992,
In 1992. And that became the whole generation. And what happened is that 1992 kind of got hijacked, if you will, by Washington. Because it was the idea it was going to be market-based, and the Department of Energy thought we're going to run this thing ourselves.
Okay.
And so that's when Ron started trying to develop coalitions with other states, such as Florida, Jim Tate in Florida,
Yes.
California, and come up and say, can we have a program that works with states and the local programs and the builders to create a system that doesn't be controlled by the government? And the fact was that was started the birth of ResNet.
Right, in 1995, right?
Yeah.
And so, Philip, my understanding is that you kind of got to know Ron in 1995, right?
That's true. In 1995, I met him through what was called the HERS Council at that time, which the Department of Energy had set up to put together a notice of proposed rule. And there was a lot of contention here between basically the people that were running the HERS Council and Energy Rated Homes of America. And it became quite a fight, actually. And so I met Ron at that time, and he was on the side of Energy Rated Homes of America. And I just happened to be serving on the HERS Council at the technical committee for the HERS Council at that time.
So were these two competing entities, Energy Rated Homes of America and the HERS Council?
They were, but what happened was in 1996, the NOPR that the Department of Energy was pushing was killed, essentially. So the Department of Energy was never able to put forth any kind of regulations on adopting HERS standards. And so basically, that's when kind of ResNet got formed pretty securely, and ResNet came up with the standards that were going to be applied. And that was the first set of standards that were developed by ResNet for this home energy rating system. And they got pushed with Steve and actually the state of Florida's energy director at that time through the National State Energy Office. And so that became the first set of standards that ResNet had ever had. And it was the first set of national standards that was in 1999.
It was something like that. I have a funny story about that. I saw what happened with the Department of Energy and how Congress smashed him like a bug on a windshield. And I was sitting there with Ron at a dinner table. We were at some kind of a conference dinner table. Phil goes, ResNet needs to develop a standard. And I said, over my dead body. I don't have the juice to deal with. They got slaughtered. I'm going to be slaughtered.
That wasn't the only over my dead body.
But the funny thing is I was able to recover, and Ron says, no, he's got a good idea. We got to do this. And so that became it, and it became a coalition of the state energy officials. Phillips echoed them in terms of statistics and that technical background. Jim Tate's passion to do it right. And
the fact that the chairman of NASIO at that time happened to be an engineer.
That's right. Who understood
who understood exactly what we were talking about doing.
So that's what it came about to be. And I was wrong and he was right. We had a standard. And now that kind of was the whole thing.
So was Ron very actively involved in the early years of ResNet? Was he ever a board member, or did he serve on any standards development?
He pretty much decided he wanted to go back to Arkansas.
Okay.
But I think he came to every conference.
He came to conferences.
But he came to every conference.
Yeah, I had the privilege of meeting him one time. Philip, you actually kind of pulled me aside and said, hey, you got to meet this guy. You know, this is the godfather here. So I really appreciate you doing that because, I mean, the guy looked amazing. I'm sorry for his passing, but when I met him just a handful of years ago, he looked like he was a very happy, friendly, peaceful human being. And
it sounds like the 2019 conference.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
But he decided that he didn't want to get in national politics. He played that game. He wanted to go, has a farm in northwest Arkansas. He wanted to grow his garden. He wanted to start a rating company, which he did. And he dabbled this and dabbled in that. And he just said, I just want to do what I want to do in my terms. And that's one thing about Ron. Ron always did what he wanted to do under his terms. And it shows that if you're progressive enough and you're flexible enough, you can do it. And I think to the whole thing is graceful of looking how life works and putting up the bad times versus the good times. And it's just that smile on his face. Anyone who met him, he'd pour on that Southern charm like you wouldn't believe. He thought Bill Clinton was a charm. Ron could outdo Bill. And the thing about it, though, was he was good. He was not necessarily a good manager, but he was a visionary.
Sure. Yeah.
And you need both kinds. And we had just talking about passing, and it's a little bit beyond the scope of this, but we also lost another leader of industry in Jerry Thatcher earlier.
Oh, yeah, right.
And
Jerry, so he was very heavily involved in energy rated homes of Indiana, right?
Yes. And he was the guy who put things together in the field. Mm-hmm. So what you had was both sides of the brain working, unfortunately passing within months of each other. Mm-hmm. But Ron was, he could be maddening. He was the president of Energy Rated Homes of America. He sometimes, I was on the board, and sometimes he'd become frustrated because he was light-footed and inconsistent sometimes. But overall, you knew that he was wanting to do the right thing. And he was really, really powerful and really strong is going to these state energy offices and talking to directors like he did with me. Sit down at the table and say, this is what the vision is. This is what the power is. And it took me a while before I could really comprehend what he was talking about. And then it really came in terms is when we passed the first energy code in Alaska, that it only made it through because we tied in a home energy rating score as part of that. And a lot of that came from Ron talking to the home builders back then. So I think that that was where his particular strong was, because he could talk to anyone. I mean, he wasn't shy about.
That's one thing I have to say is that, I hope you guys, I'm behind the camera today, but if you're on the regular podcast, you'll hear me, Sandy Gallo. I think a lot of times people like me, even, I come from a different world 15, 16 years ago and got into this business and fell in love with it. But there's so many people like Ron and like you, Phil, and like you, Steve, that really brought this business together. And I think sometimes we forget about that. Is all the hard work and all the dedication and the passion to bring something like this from nowhere to where it is today is a testament to the work that you all did. And I just want to say thank you to you guys and to Ron, bless him for that, because it's been the joy of my life.
You know where he is right now? He's up there plucking on his guitar with John Pine and having a cold one. And he saw life on his terms, and he left one on his terms. And I think that we were all richer for knowing him. And that's, to me, probably the most thing you can say about a legacy is you move people and you made a mark on people, which he definitely did. He was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Steve, I mean, is it too far of a reach to say without Ron Hughes that perhaps ResNet wouldn't be where it is today?
I know I wouldn't.
Yes.
I wouldn't. Until that guy from Arkansas showed up at my desk in Alaska.
No. So you're saying that the four of us are in this room today really because of Ron Hughes, ultimately?
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's safe to say.
Well, that's one hell of a testament to someone's life.
Yeah. Okay. Philip, any final thoughts, memories, of your time with Ron?
No, not really. I just really liked him. He was an extremely likable individual. He was dedicated to what ResNet is doing and has done. And he followed us all the way as far as he could, and then he decided to leave.
So he passed the ball, stuffed the football in the politician's pouch. Yes. And then he got the wonks. And,
there you go.
and then he went and enjoyed life.
Enjoyed life. That's exactly it. The other thing was really, to me, the most fun with him, because we were truly different personality types, was going to halls of Congress together, finding senators to co-sponsor the bill. And that was quite a 1-2 punch, but it was really enjoyable to watch him work his magic on these staffers and stuff like that. So I always have the memory. I can't go to the Senate office building now without thinking of Ron walking those halls. But you're right. I think I never thought about till you asked that question. I probably wouldn't be in this field.
Yeah, but for Ron.
Well,
what a legacy to say about someone.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, gentlemen, can't thank you enough for your contributions, but thank you, Ron. Thanks, Ron Hughes, and obviously condolences to his family. I know he meant a lot to his family, in addition to our industry. So, we just really wanted to take the time in order to, acknowledge his passing and his incredible contribution to all of our lives. So, thanks again, Ron, and thanks for listening.